what's a true crime case that's stuck in your head, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Shonda Scherer and the 4 girls that kidnapped and tortured her. She was in 8th grade, and the girls that did it were sophomores in high school. I remember watching Unsolved Mysteries in the 1980s. They had this case where the single woman who lived alone was found dead in her bed. No forced entry, no signs of any struggle, no readily apparent cause of death. A full autopsy was performed, and strychnine was found in her bloodstream. The police go back to her home and test everything, and found her NyQuil was spiked with the stuff. Friends and family told the police that she would often take NyQuil when she had trouble getting to sleep. But even then, the police had no leads, as they couldn't link anybody that she knew to the strychnine that killed her. The disappearance of Jody Huisentruit. She was local news anchor who was abducted outside her apartment on her way to work in 1995. To this day, her body hasn't been found, and no suspects have been charged. The Japanese guy who killed a French student avoided jail and then went on to do butt paintings for a living. The Judy Go case. First heard about this one on a true crime podcast. Basically, a woman enlists the help of her daughter to kill her husband, shove him in a box, and bury it in a hole in the backyard. The family secret remained for over 25 years before the daughter broke the secret. Gabriel Fernandez. Never have I ever been so angry and so disappointed in the failures of several government agencies, and never have I ever been so angry that more of those involved were not punished. A special giant FU to his grandfather and the lead social worker. Natalie Wood. All 3 people on the boat claimed they heard nothing and can't remember what happened that night. Her body was found away from the boat near a dinghy where her body was apparently floating for hours, yet the examiner said her fingers showed her body wasn't in the water for that long. Supposedly, she screamed and splashed, but no one heard her. Dennis Davern knows something, but will not talk in confidence. Tonetta Carlisle. She was kidnapped by a group of men on her way back from school. What's incredible is that not only was there a witness to the kidnapping, but they actually managed to tail the car for a while and reported the whole license plate number to 911. Tonetta's mom reported her missing that evening, yet it took days for police to actually do anything. The car was eventually traced, but Tonetta was already long gone and the owner was found dead. That was in 1989. She's never been seen since. Another case that comes to mind is the kidnapping of Michaela Garricht. She was an elementary schooler in 1988 who had just begun the first day of Thanksgiving break and begged her mom to let her and her friend buy snacks from the store. The girls used their scooters to reach the store, bought some snacks, and were halfway back when they realized they'd left the scooters in the parking lot. The friend's scooter was right where she left it, but Michaela's was moved next to the door of a car. When she went to get it, the door swung open. A man forced Michaela into the car and he sped off with her kicking and screaming, all the while her friend was helpless to do anything. Michaela's family and police were informed immediately, but she was gone. Last year, a man was finally charged with her murder. In the years since, Michaela's mom started a blog, at first as a way to communicate with her daughter, and now as a way of trying to come to terms with her life. She had advanced metastatic breast cancer, and I truly hope she lives to see the kidnapper put behind bars, if that's something she wants. The Delphi, Indiana murders, aka Down the Hill. 2 young girls murdered while out hiking in the woods near their houses. There is audio and video of the killer, but both have generated no traction, and their case remains open since 2017. The crimes committed by Jimmy Savile. Sexually abused children for decades, and the BBC covered it up simply because he had star power. He was even given keys to a hospital for disabled kids, and he'd come and go as he wished. There's a lot more, and it's disgusting. Not for the faint of heart. There isn't a single reader of Reddit familiar with this case, so I'll tell you about it. In June of 1960, little Alice Louise Lee, 7, was abducted while some family members picking beans near Trent, Oregon. Later, her dead body would be found nearby. My dad, newly promoted from traffic to investigation, took part in the effort to find Alice's murderer and bring her to justice, but there was never an arrest. Dad left the state police in 1963. but the Lee case ate away at him until he died earlier this year. In 2000 and again in 2010, the local newspaper printed stories about the anniversary of the case, and due to the fact that newspapers were on the internet and could be read all over the world, people started coming forward who claimed to know things about the case that they had never told. They began contacting Dad, who in 2010 was almost 80 years old, and he at the time was sharp enough to start acting on those tips. I remember driving him to interviews as far away as Western Washington, where elderly people gave him information that might have been true memories but might not have. He collected enough testimony that seemed to be factual that slowly we began to focus on one suspect. But the man had died in 1973, so the state police were uninterested in hearing what he had determined. Then we found a newspaper article that said the man had been arrested for sexually perversity with a minor child a couple of years later and had been sent to the Oregon State Mental Hospital in the end. If he indeed was the person who committed the murder of little Alice Lee, he likely ended up where he would have gone, but not before he had offended more. To this day, following my dad's passing, I have his carefully constructed notes that point to the likely murderer, but the police, being as busy as they are, don't really care about naming a killer who died almost 50 years ago. At least my dad died believing he had finally solved the case, the only one he didn't solve during his 4 years as a detective. Jonathan Luna. Why didn't his wife report him missing? How is his death a suicide, but his scrotum and chest have severe stab wounds? Ow. Bonus, the little 7th grade girl who was killed in a bathroom stall in Israel. A janitor was blamed for it, but no one, not even the victim's family, believes he did it. St. Louis Jane Doe. Everything about that case boggles my mind. Even that the police truly tried to at least solve her murder, except maybe whoever decided it was a good idea to mail her sweater. The library crossbow killing in Toronto. The case was so sad. The guy killed his horribly abusive father at a public library and with a crossbow and a hammer. There's not much out there about this case. There might be more about it in Chinese than in English. The Springfield 3 boggles me. I used to live in Springfield, Missouri, and my sister went to Kickapoo High, same school the 2 missing girls graduated from. Sadly, I don't think we'll ever get the answers to this one. The one lunatic, one ice pick guy, Luca Magnotta, unfortunately made the mistake of watching the viral video where he, I guess curiosity killed the cat, literally. Kieran Horman. His stepmom took him to school and dropped him off at the science fair. She snapped a photo of him, a 7-year-old boy with glasses and a CSI shirt, grinning exuberantly in front of his tree frog project. That was the last anyone saw of him, and he wasn't seen in his first class. That was in 2002. Later, it was revealed that the stepmom had supposedly attempted to have her husband, Kieran's father, killed. He divorced her promptly. Allegedly, she also resented Kieran. There's something about that last picture. He's so excited about those tree frogs. He should be in college, studying environmental science. The Bear Brook murders. How did you find 2 bodies in a barrel in the woods and not thoroughly search the area until 15 years later? Susan Powell. The twists and turns of this story are so disturbing. She was never found. Unfortunately, now she probably never will be, since everyone thought to be involved is now dead. Sylvia Likens. It really sticks with me, not just the abuse and murder, but that they involve the other kids in the home and the neighborhood kids as a fun activity in the torture and murder. How does one do that? And then the sheer loneliness of that girl, where her whole world, including outside of the family, is just intent on abusing her. No sanctuary anywhere. And then, how horrible her last moments were. The narrative from the investigation of her last hours? Heartbreaking. Just saw Slover's murders on Forensic Files. Separated mom with custody of her child was supposedly getting a modeling chance other side of the USA. Ex-mom, who wants child for herself, conspires with family, son and husband, to kill her to have custody, make it look like a kidnapping, dismember her, and throw her remains in a lake. They suddenly clean up their shithole property where they likely killed her. I think Army comes out and helps dig out their whole property, and they sift through it to find parts of clothes she was wearing when she died. They all claim innocent. The whole thing, pretending innocent, dismemberment, to the ex's mom acting as if she'd a better mom when she's capable of doing such a barbaric thing. Actually sickening, and I hope they never get out of prison. I was confused. Everyone needs to watch Dear Zachary. That documentary is gut-wrenching. It's a guy making a documentary for his best friend's son, Zachary. His best friend Zachary's father, Andrew Bagby, was murdered. This guy takes video of Andrew's friends and family saying all of this kind stuff about him, telling stories, so Zachary grows up knowing what his dad was like. Andrew Bagby was shot by his ex-girlfriend, who fled to Canada and was freed on bail, pregnant with Zachary, which was Andrew's only child. It's definitely a wild ride, and while it's sad, it also made me feel so many other emotions. I was sucked in right away. Andrew's mom and dad try and get custody of Zachary, and it's about their battle with the system. I've never had a documentary make me feel so deeply. Highly recommended. I cried for about 70 minutes of that 93-minute documentary. I recommend it too. Catherine Knight. In the Hunter Valley, NSW, Australia, this psycho bitch terrorized several of her boyfriends and husbands before she finally killed her last boyfriend. She stabbed him many times, skinned him, and hung his hide from a meat hook in a doorway of the house, decapitated him, cut slabs of flesh off his body, and cooked them up with vegetables and served them up for his kids. First ever woman in Australia to be sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Scary bitch.